Karn, your vote? Your
Oh,
vote?
aye. I didn't know it was seconded, sorry.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Work session.
We have a work session.
Okay, this is for Wildflower Village 5. It has in the community plan, it has a variety of commercial uses listed. Regional commercial, community commercial, neighborhood commercial, and office, warehouse, and business park. Let me get to this. So the applicant does have a presentation they would like to present to you. As you're reviewing this, the feedback that staff is looking for is listed here. So they have regional commercial in one small location, and we're wondering if that amount is supported. There's no business park shown. There's a large amount of office warehouse shown. And then the building sizes, some of them are quite large. And so we're wondering if you support that, and then also if you support that many. And then there's an office warehouse building proposed across the street from a school, and we're wondering if that has support. And then there's also a proposal that the grading would be flattened out, which means the site would be raised at least on the south and the west. And so we're wondering if that's supported. And then there is a list of exceptions in there, but they said they're willing to pull those back. So I'll let them touch on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi,
How's it going?
my name is Nate Ship. I'm here tonight representing hopefully the first part of the conversation. There's a couple others that are here in the audience with me that as conversation goes on, if it's all right, I'd invite them to join me.
I can sit up there.
You guys want to come up, Jeff and Elizabeth, at least? Anybody else?
We got 2 hot seats right there at the table.
Okay. Appreciated Sarah's quick summary, and we also would love to get the feedback from you tonight on those items and the other items that are, I'm sure, pressing in your mind relating to this area. So our hope is that this can be somewhat of a dialogue, and you all can give us some input as we go.
Nate, was this provided to us in our packets at all?
No,
This was not.
this presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
We can give it to you now.
No, it's a work session.
It's a work session, so yeah, we're gonna go
The
back
work
and forth.
sessions, we can have dialogue. It's not as formal.
Great. So walk down memory lane with me for a minute of our good project Wildflower. Y'all are familiar with where it's located. It's up on the northwest corner of your city. The Mountain View Corridor extension runs through the middle of it. And it basically is, the southern border is the State Road 73. When we came through a number of years ago and did the Wildflower Amendment that is now encompassing of the Wildflower land use map and is attached to the community plan, that is the ordinances that give us direction on how to develop the property. We spent a lot of time with many of you on designations of land use, and we put in where all of the roads were going to go. We put in where we were going to have single-family units, where we were going to have townhome or multifamily units. We planned for schools as best we could, which was an interesting conversation since we don't have any public schools on our property yet, but it's probably for another night. We do want to come back to that. We would love to see some schools come to the project that are public. And with that, we also identified our type 5. And that's everything that is in blue on the map there. Type 5 was, I'll read to you in the community plan. The purpose of the commercial business park type is to allow for medium-sized permitted commercial developments near residential neighborhoods with establishments that will serve the nearby community. Development under these regulations should provide for neighborhood commercial, community commercial, regional commercial, business park, and office warehouse, subject to location restrictions as determined during the village plan review. Improvements such as trails, seating, and lighting that would help create gathering spaces and promote pedestrian activity are expected. Setbacks and configurations will be in line with city code. So within our type 5, which is everything in blue there, it was, hey, let's, as life goes forward and it becomes apparent as to where the rest of the world is at, when it's time to develop this area, we'll come and have a conversation with you all about those types of uses. That's the paragraph I just read to you. We have had conversations about the north half of the type 5 already. That's in Village Plan 2. And when we went through Village Plan 2, there was some specific designations into, that was given into the village planning that was in addition to the type 5. It gave us some more direction, right? So the north, far north property up there in pink was, I'm getting used to glasses, so I apologize, but that's I think it was given an NC/CC zone, along with the 2.5, 3 acres there to the south as well. We've since, as the master developer sold the north property, we sold that to Holiday Oil. Their intent at the time they purchased it from us was that they were going to be putting a gas station there and developing the rest of the property with a smaller grocery store, grocery anchored retail center. My understanding is that their world changed a little bit when their founder passed away unexpectedly a couple of years ago. And they are in the process of probably divesting that from what I understand, but that's complete hearsay. I have not had a direct conversation with them. Our hope is that that is a retail center, and whoever ends up developing that or purchasing that will proceed with that. It fits with the rest of the community to have that there. The access is there, the visibility is there, we believe the population basis is there for that kind of a development. The property in red was zoned in Village Plan 2 as CC. So within the CC zone, which is the 2019 CC zone, we have the intent of telling now I've sold both of those parcels off as well to 2 groups. There's a group that bought everything on the north side of the road, the left side, and then a group that bought everything on the right side. The group on the right side is John Hines, and I got, so that's Mortensen Development. And they sent me some information this morning because I asked them for an update. They said on June 16th, they came in to meet with your staff and had a preliminary conversation about their intent for that part of the project. He indicated to me that they have started pre-leasing, but they have not finished their design quite yet. They are looking at doing 100,000 square feet of office in that location, a surgical or surgery center, 25,000 square feet of inline retail space. I would assume that would be up along the road where the access is and the corner is going on and off the Mountain View corridor, and another 7,500 square feet of single tenant retail, all of which they're currently pre-leasing with the Mountain West Commercial Retail Leasing Team. So some of those uses will actually fit in this CC zone, but I asked him for some clarification on his buildings when he talked about the office space, because within the CC zone, it actually does permit for business park type uses, but it's somewhat limiting because it's based on height. I think our current zone allows for 40-foot tall buildings that are offices in the CC, where your business park zone allows it to go a little higher. The height that he gave me was 44 feet to the parapet on their current design. So we're not necessarily here to talk about this, but I'm trying to help set the stage of where we are with everything. I would anticipate at some point, if that's really his height, he's going to come back to you and have a conversation about the office that he wants to put there and either ask for a variance in the CC zone, or he will rezone it to business park so that he can do it one way or the other. I'm not here to speak for him. That's just what he told me earlier today. Then that leaves us with everything basically south of the old Military Road. Military Road, if you remember, was the gravel access that used to come out of the Springs area where our friend John used to drive all his trucks and try and get on and off the Mountain View corridor. That's fortunately been removed. But that was kind of our demarcation line for planning as we came forward. So now we're talking about what to do with everything on the south end of there. We have some specific limitations. We are limited on access to that property. As you look at the map, you can see we have overlaid in black and white the future plans that we've been given from UDOT. They have a large spaghetti bowl type intersection designed for a convergence of the Mountain View corridor and the future planned Cedar Valley Freeway. And as they have designed that preliminarily, this is what they've given us. So it means there will be one-way frontage roads. There will be access points that, for instance, if you look at the far west side of our project where the yellow or orange is, that is an extension of the road that comes from the Edge Homes master plan. And that is designed to carry under the freeway up and around traffic that wants to go north on Mountain View.
Mount Saratoga Boulevard.
Thank you. Yes.
Hey, Nate, a question on this,
Yeah.
and maybe for city manager. This spaghetti bowl is hypothetical at this point. It's a long ways away. How set in stone is that plan to have these massive flyovers? And I imagine this design's gonna change 10 times.
I suspect that design will change significantly, especially given the conversation we're having with UDOT on Pioneer Crossing and what is potentially going to happen with Pioneer Crossing getting widened significantly. So I do believe there will be a flyover there. To say that there won't be access, I think there is limited access, but I think we've always anticipated that there would have some access issues into this area.
Yeah.
So I would say, I do think that there is significant amount of planning that's being done right now, but we don't know the final outcome.
But there's a good chance that Mount Saratoga Boulevard and then that north, that's gonna be close to it, because you got there's gonna be two freeways right there.
Well, the original plan was always that there would be some sort of a frontage road system that would allow for good circulation into the site and out of the site. And so the question is when you're changing directions, that works great if it's unidirectional, towards Cedar Valley or Cedar, Eagle Mountain. But it really comes into how do we work the network to get traffic best into and out of that
Yeah,
site?
frontage roads don't work well at spaghetti bowls.
Well,
There's,
you look up at, what is it, the Temp Highway and I-15 with Digital Drive and stuff. They provide access to.
A lot of those are really long on and off ramps. Those without.
Well, but they have, Digital Drive is a frontage road that just runs alongside the freeway.
what we do know is that there is a lot of planning that's happening. I don't think it's safe to say that there is a full conclusion yet of what
All right.
that's gonna look like.
Fair.
And I 100% agree. Not that my opinion in that realm matters at all, but I do believe there's a lot more planning that will happen before these roads are actually built. That said, based on whatever's built there, it's got to move a lot of people east to west and west to east and north to south. I mean, it's kind of the crux of where everything is now built to bring people together, to push them in those directions. As we balance that with the topography that staff has brought up, right now we have, if you drive out there and you look, the road elevation of 73 is significantly higher than the adjacent property that we own. It's already raised. So getting off of that when you're trying to move people is, I think, the concern that has been raised by the UDOT people and the impact that it has with their frontage roads. Reminds me of the conversation that we had on the north side of Wildflower when they brought us the original design. If you remember our furthest north connection. And when we ended up developing that neighborhood, we ended up with retaining walls in existing residents' homes that were 15 to 20 feet tall. We all got to hear that conversation from those people and the impact that that had on them because UDOT had never finished their vertical design of the road up there. And then they just came and did it, and we were left with what they had done. Similar here, we've got the design of what they've given us, and they said that we have the right to access the property in the 2 locations that we have shown you. They have not that we wouldn't be opposed to having additional accesses, but based on their vertical design and what they have today, they've said this is where you can get permission to come off of our roads safely, put our traffic here.
Sorry, just to understand, because both those connections are off the frontage system, not off of an off-ramp.
Correct.
Where are the closest off-ramps on Mountain View? Is it gonna be at Harvest Hills?
So currently, the signalized intersection, it's Harvest Hills Boulevard on one side of the street, and I don't know what it's called on the west, sorry.
Wildflower.
Wildflower, yeah.
Yeah.
But that will be.
That is the
that'll be an
intersection.
off-ramp interchange?
They have told us will be the off-ramp, that
Okay.
to access this site from the freeway, you would get off at Harvest Hills,
And then drive down the
and then
front.
you come down the frontage road to where you connect with Saratoga Springs Boulevard. Is that the name of that road that comes out of?
Mount Saratoga.
Mount Saratoga, sorry, Mount Saratoga Road.
And will that be an interchange?
That will be a interchange with the
The frontage road.
frontage road, but not with the freeway.
And so
Now-
on SR 73, is it Ranches Boulevard the next exit?
No, I'm not entirely sure, because I believe there's an underpass that goes through there and would allow people to then access it.
Right, I'm just saying
I don't
where
know the details.
where the interchange off of the,
Mount Saratoga will
Cedar
continue
Freeway
under
or
the freeway. It'll be an underpass.
Right.
And it will hit the frontage road on the east side that is a one-way north. So you can go underneath the freeway there and hang a left to go north up
On the freeway.
to Harvest Hills Boulevard, because it's
Right.
on the east side. And there's an on-ramp there to get on.
but on
freeway.
the Cedar Valley Freeway or whatever they're calling it, the next
How do you
next
access
exit
$73?
is gonna be Ranches.
The 20.
If you're coming from Mount Saratoga, you would have to either follow that route, or you'd have to go west to the next intersection west, and I don't know the
might-
name of that.
You
but
don't know where
it
that is.
lines
Might be
up with
further
the
on.
John Hatfield property.
How do you,
Catch the on-ramp there.
in this version, how do you go east?
From where?
Mount Saratoga Road, Mount Saratoga Boulevard. If you're coming north,
They'll go underneath the freeway and then turn left
They'll
on
have
the
to
frontage
drive through
road.
you have
Yes.
to drive through that. Okay.
Councilmember O'Connor
No,
is
so to
correct.
go east, they go underneath the freeway, the Cedar Valley Freeway, get on the frontage road going east
And then
before, and then going west.
Up
So
on
each
the
side
Harvest.
has one.
yeah.
There's a whole lot of black and white lines there on the bottom.
Yeah, I know.
Right, I'm just
Just
trying to
don't know how
understand,
they're
you know,
gonna-
I'm trying to understand
If you've
where your
driven in-
interchanges are.
If you've
'cause those
driven in
are
Dallas, Texas, you
Yeah.
know how these systems
Yeah.
work. Because that's their entire system, is frontage roads, freeways. It works great.
Highly visible location.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly how it's going to work, but accessibility is currently in the 2 locations we're showing our access to, and we would love to get more, but this is what, if we walk through the door today and say, UDOT, we'd like to access, they're going to tell us these are the 2 spots. They have told us.
Well, they're
these are
two
the
really big spots.
And they're great.
Part of the environmental impact study that's beginning now, which will go from 73 down to really Point of the Mount, Pelican Point.
Pelican Point.
That EIS will start to dig into this a little bit. more.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip ahead. Oop, I went too fast. Well, maybe it won't let me do that.
There's huge.
I was going to show you, I thought we had a traffic map in here, but
Mayor, do we have any time constraints for tonight?
We do, we have a few councilmen, including myself, that have some time constraints, so yes.
What time would you like me to be done?
If we want, we probably want you done with your presentation in about 10 minutes so that they can discuss and
We still have closed session.
we still have closed session.
Perfect. Talking about access, I think we have good access. I would describe the location UDOT has given us as good access. We're coming off of good frontage roads. It's not like you got to wind through a bunch of neighborhoods to get to the site. You're going to come right off of a freeway frontage road and enter the site. That's a positive. It's a win. We have designed, basically, the blue line is the extension of Mount Saratoga Boulevard. It used to connect with the green line. If you remember your master transportation map, it used to be one road that went all the way through. We did do quite a bit of study with Hales Engineering and amended your transportation map based on the feedback that we all got from those traffic analysis, because the traffic that was flowing north off of the blue was into the green Harvest Hills / Wild Blossom Boulevard intersection.
Too many people.
It was designed at 5 or maybe 6 left turn lanes and still failing,
Yeah.
which is why we had to split it. I think what it means is that what you've got there is a great point on the south and a great point on the north to access frontage roads and freeways without having to go through neighborhoods, right? Which is good for accessibility. I think it's good for what we're looking at trying to develop here. I would label it as a Class A employment center. We are concerned with balancing what we have heard from your staff and from you all in conversations of it being very visible, it being a gateway into your city, it being a part of your brand and what you need, and meeting from your economic development director, analysis of, this is what the city's lacking. Balancing with, in a marketplace, what do we see and what do we feel will be successful there? Nobody wants to build an empty building and have it just sit vacant. So with that, in conjunction with where we started, we truly have put together some goals that we feel are important to everybody. They include targeting a broad tenant mix, which includes the life sciences, the R&D groups, the entrepreneurial businesses. It's the place where we would expect those who are living here in Saratoga or looking to bring and grow their businesses or bring their businesses to Saratoga, where they can fit the current economic model of a business that is needing store frontage, being able to sell things direct to the public, have office space where they can house employees, and then also meet the demands of all of our Amazon orders and be able to ship stuff to our homes, since some of us don't drive to the store and buy things directly anymore. With that, and this is where the rest of the team's going to come in to talk about design of what these buildings are meant to look like and feel like. The specific questions that the staff has posed to you tonight, where they're looking for some direction. The first question is the amount of regional commercial on the map. I guess we had this whole site that was zoned regional commercial when we started our process with you. With the input we had from UDOT and what the accessibility was going, if you remember, we were down the path with the CenterCal folk, the guys that did the Farmington station and are doing the Riverton station. This was all under contract. They were moving forward with building this as a regional commercial center. It conflicted with your city plan of where you wanted your city center, where that was being built. And it also conflicted with our ability to access the site. They had long conversations with UDOT about, can we get additional access here or here? and we're told no. Those two things meant that we came back and we rezoned this not RC. We believe we've got some great RC components, meaning we're drawing people to a specific location, but the RC zone in its entirety is tough to fit in a location that was turned down by the best in the business already. I don't know if you've got additional feedback for me on that now, but that's kind of our why behind not having a lot of RC. We're using the overlapping areas of the code with OW and BP and CC and NC to bring those types of uses that would also be included in the RC. That's our intent. The next thing that the staff asked for direction on is no business park. Again, we focus less on zones as more as on uses, right? The red space for the 8.5 acres to the north with this medical surgical center and the business
That's
park.
not guaranteed.
It's not. It's not. This is all in planning, and I appreciate that comment. This is all perspective planning right now.
That's right, and so we
For
have to
sure.
make decisions that are based on perspective. I'm gonna just be blunt, you're asking for too much.
Of what?
All of that office warehouse,
Oh, we're not asking for all that as office
that's
warehouse.
all office warehouse, all that blue is.
Okay, great. Perfect. I
Is
appreciate
that not
that.
office warehouse buildings? Isn't that a Amazon distribution center? Isn't that that's what you're asking for?
I really appreciate that because it's an interesting perspective that I appreciate. That's not the case. Your Costco here, for instance, it was shocking to me to learn that's a 150,000 square foot building, right, Sarah? That's what we looked up. It's approximately that. That's the size of these buildings.
Right, but you,
Some of them are 275.
you have 275,000 square foot buildings in there.
And we have buildings that are 30,000 square feet.
Right, but you're asking for 3 times the size of a Costco,
So
double.
so the entire colored area is your type 5 in the wildflower plan,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
And the wildflower plan calls for 4 or 5 zones to be in that plan.
Yes.
And your current plan addresses all of them but business park.
Yes.
You've got everything included but business park.
So
And it had to be a even mix, or not even, but a
I don't-
balanced mix.
Not when I read it. That's not what it said.
So it's a legislative,
should
it's a
provide for.
legislative decision.
Agreed, but it just says should provide for. And it's providing for everything but business park today.
and I guess
There's no
Councilmember,
guarantee that we're gonna get that.
Any
in that
business
bed.
park.
Any business park,
No, I
even in
agree.
the red.
I agree.
yeah.
Another clarification. Mic working now?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I guess
turning
it
it
is.
off.
Okay, okay, got it. Another clarification is they are asking for office warehouse under the previous code, which they're vested to in the development agreement. So it's not, remember, we created this heavy commercial zone with new standards. So they would be coming in with office warehouse under the old code.
Under the old.
That's my understanding, is that that's what they're asking for.
Which would not meet the current standards that you have in place today.
But this is a legislative decision of where you put these zones within this village plan.
Yep.
Right.
So I've had a hard time, to be honest, focusing on the colors of the zones because there's a lot of overlap and unknown as to what's really going to be. Councilmember Comber, you are correct. There's no guarantee one way or the other what happens other than there's these bumpers that are put on by the codes and who knows what's going to happen in between at the end of the day, right?
We're here talking about your blue section. And we do know, because you told us what you want to do there.
So what I'm hoping tonight we can do is get some feedback from you all that's beyond just, and I'm open to this, as to beyond just that's too much. What I'm hoping we can do is talk about the goals of what are trying to be accomplished for the ground. I don't know where the receiver is to change this quarterback, but it seems to be frozen. And discuss what the look and feel and the finish of the park ultimately will be. Whether we change this from OW to BP If we did the entire thing as BP, for instance, we would come in and have the same conversation of what does that look like? Your current zone of BP under the 2019 code allows for wide variation on business park offices. And what I've heard is concern about what does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it function? You know, this is going to be, and so where in the marketplace, we're getting demands for office space, and we're getting demands for warehousing space, and we're getting, that's the tenant we're after. And we have chosen the segment of the market to be the Class A component of that, meaning we're proposing higher architectural features that make the buildings more expensive, which means we have to get the higher lease rates. So we have to go after those A tenants. We're trying to balance all of that, so.
Sarah, how many, what exceptions did they ask for with the submittal that we, that staff gave comment on? Weren't those largely exceptions to the architectural standards that Nate's
Yes.
indicating that we're going to reach higher standards?
Sorry.
Yet your application was trying to remove those from being a requirement. So what you're saying and what the application that was given to staff is conflicting.
Sorry, I should have finished setting the table. We've stepped back from that application because we heard a lot of great input. And so the exceptions that we've asked for have all been removed from our next application. We're not here for a vote tonight. We're just trying to get feedback. But
Again-
where we're starting from, Mark, is
Your feedback, the feedback we gave you, we appreciate that you're pivoting on it, and it sounds to me as if your next application will incorporate those changes. Based on what you submitted and what you were asking and the staff review, you were told exactly what the council has directed us in our change to the office warehouse zone was, and now you're saying you're going to bring in something higher and better, but we don't have an application in front of us to look at.
correct.
So I mean, I think you're looking for feedback, so I'm going to give you some feedback. When I say you're asking for too much, I'm not saying you can't ask for any. I just think that you're asking for too much. I think that you need to mix it up. You need to have some of your office warehouse, you need to have business park, you need to have that regional section. My goodness, you're going to have 100,000 people a day driving that Mount Saratoga. You have all of the ranches basically coming through. They're going to be coming down Mount Saratoga Boulevard, right underneath that, and getting to the Mountain View Corridor Freeway. This is an amazing section for regional commercial. And so, I mean, I've been doing this 14 years. I'm not a newbie. Please, you can't tell me that office warehouse is all that really can fit here and that little teeny bit of orange for regional commercial. I think that you need to look at the true traffic counts. You need to talk to these people and say, you can absolutely support more of your regional commercial type businesses. My heck, you can even put a car wash there. I'm sure there's one that want to go there. And it's far enough away from our other ones, so you'd be able to get approved, because we've changed that rule in our city as well. And so, but business park, like, you know, put your office warehouse, tuck it in behind. I mean, those two buildings that are closest to the two freeways, that's maybe a decent spot, because it's going to be loud as heck there. Like, it's going to be extremely loud, those maybe 4 buildings. But you can, when you come back, I'll tell you right now, if you came back with this, with my legislative decision capabilities, you would not get my vote. 100%, you would not get my vote, not on those big of buildings. You need to break up the buildings. Buildings, when you break them up, you can create more landscaping and shielding. Those are huge rooftops. And you even said the freeway is coming up above it. They're going to be looking down on not pretty architectural design. They're going to be looking at the tops of roofs because it's lower. And so I need to see office, warehouse, fine. Business park, yes. More regional commercial, more balanced. Break up some of those humongous buildings, and then we can have a real conversation. But if you came asking for 225,000, multiple buildings, the only buildings that are even reasonable are the 2 small ones and those maybe 2 on the far right. The other ones, those 5 buildings are way too big. So that's just my feedback to you, because we're running out of time. I'm sure the other council members have feedback as well.
So I want to,
Councilman Carn, really quick, I got to excuse myself, but just a quick input. You know, I think when we first looked at it, we were looking at just the blue, blowing it out. You're looking at the whole business park. That kind of changes the perspective for that. I think, you know, a lot of it's going to be what does that aesthetics look like? You know, you're fronting 2 major roads for us. You're a corridor to our city. Councilman Comber's point, you know, this is a visible piece. I wish we knew more from UDOT, high, low, how that sat as to what we're looking at for that. So I think landscaping, what it looks like, the type of tenants that are in it, and how does that blend with it, are going to be very important as that comes back. It sounds like you're stepping back from a lot of your initial asks or requests from your initial application.
We started 2 years ago, and I think the initial idea was, hey, let's put an Amazon center here, and it was million square foot, one building, million square feet with trucks and parking. I mean, that was a 2 years ago start for us, right? It's not near, not even remotely what we're talking about today. So yes, I appreciate that, Mayor. We're trying to figure this out.
Anyways, I'm sorry, I've got to excuse myself.
Fine.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, and then
Yeah,
this is also the entrance
Can we
corridor
talk,
mo-
Councilmember McCumber, I appreciate where we're at, and I know we're down to like 5 minutes.
No, I think we have a little bit more time for some of the other council members. I think we're okay. But this is our entrance, so we've created an overlay zone, and this is part of that overlay zone. It requires some additional, I know you have some vested rights and things, but we're also trying to create our entrances to our city so that there's branding to our city.
Is that true? Is this part of the overlay zone?
It
A
would
little
be.
bit is, yeah, by the entrance, right,
The RC area is, I think.
RC area.
right.
Go ahead.
So I just Googled quickly, but an Amazon distribution center is about 800,000 square feet. And I've already given you my feedback that I think 225,000 square feet is too big for this area. I think that's way too big of a building in this area. I'm okay with office warehouse here. I would like to see the BP get addressed. And obviously, all those exceptions I would want to have come out of a plan where I talked about it. And I'd like to see, if we do bring office warehouse in here, to have some type of a development agreement in the legislative process so we don't get, the corners of the buildings looking nice and then these long walls. And then the next corner looks nice and then long walls. I'd like to see more architectural input there.
That shows the whole thing.
I mean,
Go
with
ahead.
Can I ask a fee zone that?
He's showing concept plans.
So-
Chris, he's showing concept plans.
So,
Yeah,
Councilmember,
I know that's a concept
the
plan.
corner. No,
But is
we-
that captured in the code?
Right.
it
That's two
is-
different things.
Yeah.
When we talk
Exactly.
about corners versus the full building, here's the corner, here's the full building. Does
Yeah.
that capture what you're talking about?
No, it does.
Okay, I'm just trying
But
to
it
make.
needs to be in the code.
But is that captured in the code is my question.
So that it
No,
requires
it's
this
not.
to be built.
It's not under your existing code, which is why we got to bring the
Right.
specifics behind it.
And that was the
Absolutely.
concern before, is because we have only your existing application that was
Right.
stripping, even what you
Yeah.
produced on Pioneer Crossing,
And
which
that's-
is decent, you were even stripping even more. So our mindset, we came in with a much
Sure.
different mindset. So again, office warehouse, like Chris is saying, I'm saying office warehouse, sure, but just business park and other things. Stephen or Chris?
You want to go?
Well, for me, I'm going off of the Wildflower Development Agreement, and the way I read it is you've addressed all the types except for business park. And so I would,
Got to see the business park on the map.
right, I'd like to see that, and then the other changes to the office warehouse as we've discussed.
Okay, great.
So I know you've also received my feedback, but I'll repeat it here just so the other council members can hear it and it's on public record. I'm not afraid of office warehouse, and I know you haven't said this, Nate, it is approved under the 2019 code, but legislatively, we have the ability to work with how much are we willing to grant office warehouse versus the other space. And if you want more office warehouse as far as a quantity of space, I think the size of the buildings need to meet closer to what we have in current code.
What is that?
Is it safe to say, and I want to paraphrase what you're going for, is it safe to say you want much tighter standards regarding that office warehouse? So that in the community plan, it gives us very clear guidance?
Yeah, or it would be the village plan.
That's where
But
it would come.
I think you understand what I'm saying is, if we want a larger quantity of office warehouse within that, you're gonna need to meet our existing code. If we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna hold to the 2019 code, it's gonna be a much smaller space that I would be willing to entertain. because when it came to us, was it 29? Time flies when you're having fun. Whenever it was, like, our code in 2019 around office warehouse was not written well. Our staff, picked up on it because we had 1 million square foot type of applications coming to us. These are smaller, but it fits under that. 225,000-ish. I don't know what you can do with it, but anyway, this is the same thing I've shared before.
Can I ask, would you extend that in your mind? Meaning, if we hit the new standard, great. But what if we do things to exceed that standard? There's some, in our world, right, if we increase like the buffering requirement off of the existing roads, if we do things like that, it impacts our ability to take smaller buildings and put them side by side. So I'm just wondering, is the standard, no, we're the most concerned about the size of the building? Or is the standard, hey, if you can exceed the look and feel and put more glass and parapets and other things, and you can increase the landscaping, do the buffering bigger, and that means we have a little bit larger building, maybe it's 190,000 square feet instead of 160,000 square feet or whatever your current, I'm just throwing numbers out.
I
That's
think-
something that's worth talking about or not?
Well, I'm one, but from my perspective, I think you could. You'd have to address it in the village plan, not necessarily in master development agreement or whatever.
Okay.
It would just have to be pretty specific. So my whole point is, if you want larger of that space to be office warehouse, we have to tighten down what it looks like. If it's not exactly like in alignment with our existing office warehouse code, it would need to have more, like you're saying, heightened standards or whatever that may be.
And can I just get a clarification? Because
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
you're actually saying, so when you say the new code, you're talking about the heavy commercial zone code.
The new,
Correct.
Not the office, because the office warehouse stayed in place for existing vested rights.
What I'm talking about, not the zone, but where we would allow these type of buildings, whatever.
We changed the name of it to heavy commercial and imposed standards for this type of project. So I think you're referring to the heavy commercial standards.
Sure, yeah.
Ones, right, Sarah?
Increasing the
Right.
heavy commercial
Yeah.
standards for this village plan.
Right. And that's where you get the smaller footprint, the increased architectural standards and so forth.
And under the right scenarios and commitments and stuff, and not handshake commitments, Like I said before, I hope all of us in this room are wildly successful and doing completely different things in the next 10 years. So we can't commit that a handshake is going to be what it is in perpetuity. So it'd need to be pretty clearly spelled out.
In the village plan.
Yep.
And I just put back up the list of things that staff would like feedback on. So, grading, there are proposals to grade the site quite a bit, which would result in 30-foot retaining walls. And then, right now, there's office warehouse proposed directly across the street from the school. And then the other ones you've been covering, but those, and then the amount of regional commercial, one of you has touched on that. But if you wouldn't mind touching on the other topics as well, that would be helpful.
What were the other topics?
the school and.
School and buildings and the size.
Sarah, can you pull up page 16 of our proposal?
And if you want a 30-foot retaining wall, think of what you're seeing along Redwood Road.
Road with the.
In Lehigh. I mean, those are some pretty massive walls
That's only about a 35-foot wall.
Is it 30? I have no idea. It looks huge, but
So
It's
to me,
big.
I have
this,
no idea.
That's what we need feedback on. That's big.
Yeah.
yeah, the school came and built in an area that this was planned for.
They did it themselves.
I mean, they came into an area that was planned to have these zones in the type 5 housing. So I think they built where they built as a charter school, and they knew what their neighbors are going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not too,
I mean, they knew there was going to be office warehouse, business park.
It's going to be something.
It's going to
It's
be.
going to be commercial over there.
Yeah.
Me, I'm not as worried about that as I am about the size of these buildings and the amount of them.
I agree.
Can you put your thing, just so I make sure I hit everything again?
The staff
The
list.
list of staff
list,
requests.
yeah.
For me, looking at the, there you go. Staff's happy.
I don't know where it went.
Time up.
For me, I need to see the business park addressed. I realize that Class A office space is not eminently developable today. But this is a gateway to our city. We are working very hard to bring that type of use into our city. And if it's covered by a warehouse, it's not going to get built, right? So we have to preserve some space. I know that no developer likes to hear us talk about a 25-year plan because you guys think on much shorter timeframes, but we think in 25 to 50 years. And I cannot, in good conscience, leave my position here saying, there's no place for people to work one day. I get some people think that offices are dying and they're a dinosaur. They thought that in the 30s, they thought that in the 60s, they thought that in the 80s. It's a cyclical thing. They'll be back. So we need to have some business park there. I would like to see the regional commercial expanded. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be huge, but I think you could probably support more. Maybe that one last building could go regional commercial, or at least along the road. I get that there's a depth requirement, right? Buildings of this size and this many buildings, the school, I agree with Councilman Karn. The buildings of the size and this many buildings, I think, and the amount of office warehouse, I think I come back to similar to what Councilman Wilden said, that, for us, and in my mind, the baseline is our new heavy commercial zone, right? If you want to exceed that in size, then there needs to be a commensurate trade-off, right? If you're increasing, the amenities, the look, the feel, the buffering, the landscaping, whatever, we can talk about, increasing the size, at least in my mind. I'm one of 5. But that's, I'm willing to negotiate on that as far as, bring us something that is, you talk about Class A flex space, which is a imaginative turn of phrase.
Class A Employment Center.
There you go.
It was a nice spin.
I saw you spinning it. It was
I appreciate it.
A+. English.
You guys gotta give me a little credit. I think I heard. It took me like 6 hours to come up with that, Councilmember McComber. I think I heard you smile when you said it.
So
I was over here going like this.
So, if you're bringing in, and it's going to have to be captured in the village plan, but if you're bringing in a true Class A level flex space, I'm willing to explore bigger buildings, but, I think that the business park, bringing that in needs to address, I think that will address how many buildings we're talking about, just because you're going to lose some land to that. As far as raising the site to grade it flat, it's fine with me. It's your money if you want to fill it up with dirt. That's
Build huge walls.
well, I don't. The filling it up would not make it as high a wall, right? Or the.
Oh, no, they fill it up and they have to have a wall to hold all that dirt.
I guess
We've gone maybe
How
some.
many is the grade from military coming down?
So
Okay.
if I could, in order to have large buildings, you gotta have them all on the same.
On
foot.
flat, right?
And this is a sloped site, so you're talking about a lot of grading to make
So
large.
the wall would be up against the frontage road and the freeway.
So,
Where would the wall be?
It would be the south.
sorry, now I'm
south
moving
end.
through a different analysis.
But why?
If you stand on the east side and you look west, or west side and look east, it's a little, I stand there and it actually looks pretty flat to me, but
Right,
it's
that's-
not.
yeah.
There's like 40-something feet of fall from one side of,
It's a 40-foot wall.
So where's this wall?
Well,
Where would the wall be located?
right now it's shown on both sides. So right now it's shown along the road, along the back, and then along. So right now it's
Okay.
shown on both
So you
sides.
would
So,
grade,
like
you would
need-
flatten out above the blue road
We'll step
and then
this up.
below the
we
blue
won't have
road.
one big wall. We're gonna have multiple walls as
Right.
we go, and it will be done to try and minimize our cost, but also
Right.
minimize the impact of visually having a 30-foot or 40-foot wall. We'll do 10 walls hidden behind buildings or off of parking lots so that we capture follow
I
as we
mean,
go.
yeah, if we're avoiding a one single wall, I think, because I think the money is going to make that, I mean, you'd have to bring in so much dirt to fill up behind a 40-foot wall that it would be insane. I mean,
And that goes
I
to
guess
whether it's BP, RC.
Staker Parsons is happy to sell it to
OW,
you.
Any of those uses, you're gonna have to have enough flat space to put those types of uses there. The
Right.
grading in between uses is gonna be about the same, whether you're putting in a regional center cal site that's all retail versus a business park that's, full of glass buildings.
Approximate fall between your current existing neighborhood to the north and this property,
You're talking,
above the dog park?
oh,
well, they've,
200 feet,
Okay.
maybe more?
I'm gonna look down on top of
The
this.
thing
Yes.
is, that you're gonna have, spend all this money on buildings, and all you're gonna see is huge walls. That's the problem.
We won't know until we see grading.
yeah, we'll have to see the new plan.
Redwood Road, as you're coming down, I mean, you don't see those buildings above, all you see is the big cinder block.
Yeah,
What I hear is minimize the walls and hide them so that they're not visually impacting as best we can.
Well, then there's ways you can, with landscaping, you can make them look better. If you look at how Adobe did it, because you have a lot of big walls when you're going into, up to Cabela's and Traverse and everything, but they use landscaping and they use setbacks and they use angles to try and minimize it. So
Great example.
creative, then that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Be creative with it.
I think I addressed everything the staff had, and I mean, I echo a lot of what was already said, so I'm not going to repeat it again.
I think you got good feedback. I mean, I think there's been a lot of consistency. So you know you're not going to get a vote if you don't follow at least some of the things that were being talked about. So I think, and then landscaping, I mean, I appreciate some of your pictures showing that you can't even see the office buildings, but those are 40-year-old trees. And in Saratoga Springs, they're probably 60-year-old trees.
They're probably like the 10th version of the tree you've planted over
Our
60
trees-
years
our
because
trees- How many of your trees?
80% of them die.
I mean,
You want to know why? You don't have enough iron. You got to make sure you have iron in your trees.
But-
Tell your landscaper that. That's the problem out
I've
here.
got a 35-foot tree in front of my house that's, 10 feet tall. It was supposed to grow, they just don't.
It's all about iron out here. I drill holes in my trunks and you put iron in it. My trees are, I have 60-foot trees in front of my house. But, I mean, I think sex up the buildings, make them look better, make them look really appealing, put a lot of landscaping, fix those walls. I think that you got to pretty much, Stephen, you didn't talk about the school. Are you concerned about the school?
No, the school knew what
The school
the
knew what
zone
they were
was.
getting, so we're not as
And
worried
it's
about
a
that one.
charter school, right?
And they're building a
Not
middle,
that makes
they
it
they are
better.
building another school on the site.
But the school, but then again, they
about
still
to get
knew what was
about
coming.
80.
Yeah,
It wasn't
I
like
agree,
it wasn't
100%.
zoned. It wasn't like this was ag land.
Right.
Right.
They had every
They
right
knew
to
what was
know where
coming.
they were buying. So I think that, and then I think that addresses all the real main concerns.
If I could, looking at some of the topography lines on the very western edge of their property, down to the lowest ones right by Mountain View Corridor, you've got about 130 feet of elevation.
Yeah, that's why we were saying there would be 30 feet front and back of, but you know what I mean? At least in the document that was,
Right.
And it goes
Showing a lot
pretty
of-
much east-west.
Yeah.
It goes pretty much just straight east-west along SR 73. So, I mean, if you start kind of back on the power line corridor, you got about a 130-foot drop.
I mean, go look over at Traverse Mountain. They've had to deal with the same kind of thing. They had 300 and 400 feet drops with the mountain there. And they put in outlets, and they put in an Adobe building, and they put in huge Class A office buildings. So they've done some, and they've done a lot of office warehouse there too. So it might be an opportunity, maybe a roadshow for you guys to just go and like, okay, this is what they've done to help make it work, because you're dealing with similar situation here.
Just don't try and put a big flashing sign.
Yeah. Any other comments before we?
No.
All right, well, thank you very much. Any other?
Did you get what you need?
I believe so. We will go back and rework our plan and
Pull your
make an application. Well, but
Amend it.
I think we're going to amend what we've submitted.
Yeah, amend your submission.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. All
Thank you.
right.
Appreciate
I
your time.
will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All unanimous. Thank you. Thank you.